The programme was originally broadcast in 1957.
Desert Island Discs. Each week, a well-known person is asked the question, if you were to be cast away alone on a desert island, which 8 gramophone records would you choose to have with you, assuming, of course, that you also had a gramophone? As usual, the week's castaway is introduced by Roy Plumley.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? On our desert island this week is a famous actor and variety star who began his career back in the early 1890s, and he's still hard at it. In fact, he's recently finished a new television series. It's Bransby Williams. Well, Mr. Williams, I believe you've played in most parts of the world, but have you ever been on a desert island before?
Not that I know of.
You know, it's strange to think that in your childhood there was no gramophone at all. There wasn't even a phonograph that played cylinders, was it?
Oh, well, my first memory is when Gladstone spoke, and they got his voice on a little cylinder. Well, in those days, I began as a monologue artist, and they got me to do a monologue on a cylinder.
Yes. Do you play the gramophone a lot nowadays?
No, haven't got one.
Haven't you? Well, the BBC's going to give you one now to take to your desert island.
Oh?
Did you find it a hard job to choose just 8 records to take with you?
Well, no. At first I looked through and I remembered all those I'd heard and worried by some of the noises. I thought they were having conglomerations, but once you say it's by Mozart or it's by Beethoven, it's good. So I've thought of how I should choose them, and I'm choosing my records as a little memory of the person or something about it that brings it to life in this show.
Yes. Well, what's the first memory?
Well, the first one I'm doing is one by the Kentucky Minstrels. I was fascinated at the time by Carry Me Back to Green Pastures, because it was accepted as a genuine old spiritual. And to everybody's surprise, it was written by dear old Harry Pepper. Well, I spent some happy times with Harry Pepper up at Bangham when we were all banished during the war. And I just want to have this record to remind me of those happy days.
Kentucky Minstrels. What's your second choice, Mr. Williams?
My second choice is Liszt's Second Hungarian Rhapsody.
Why?
Because in my early days with the girls, my daughters and their friends, one of them was very fond of playing this number on the piano. And one day I said, very, very good, but, you know, you'll play much better when you've had a sorrow or some tragic experience. I lived to remember that, and so did she, for she had the sad experience in her life. And some years afterwards, she sat there as a grown woman and played it, and I said, there you are. It tells. There's emotion in it, and there's finish that you hadn't got before. And so, I'd like to hear it all over again.
Here it is. the beginning of Liszt's second Hungarian Rhapsody, played by Louis Kempner. Mr. Williams, what brought you into the theatre? Was it in the family?
Oh, no. It was just boyish inclination, I suppose. I started like all boys do when they want to disguise themselves. In those days, they blacked up. I was a boy minstrel.
Yeah.
But before all this, I was intended to be a parson.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was well known as the boy preacher of the Dr. Harry Grattan Guinness mission. That surprises you. Then came the time when I wanted to act. And so I played little parts in a little amateur dramatic company. And then I played better parts, and the little company went round and played in working men's clubs.
Yeah. What was your first professional engagement?
Well, I suppose my first professional engagement was when I was engaged to go down to Brighton. In those days, there was a theatre in the old aquarium. I remember I dressed among the seals and sea lions.
What were you playing?
Oh, I was general dealer and bottle washer.
Yeah.
I played anything and everything. Old men this week, young men next week.
How much money were you getting?
30 bob a week. Well paid.
What was your next job after that season at Brighton?
After that season at Brighton, I joined a melodramatic company and went out in the smalls, the number twos and number threes, if you like. We played the old-fashioned alarmer. Remember what I tell you.
Did you ever get stranded?
Did I ever get stranded? We did at Sittingbourne, and it was at Christmas. We played a matinee, we played a night show, played Boxing Day, and the next day, the bloke running the show had done a guy, and there we were left at Sittingbourne.
How did you get back to London?
I walked it.
Oh, dear.
Yes, those were the days, my boy. I walked it.
Interviewing a man with such long and rich experience in a very limited time is rather frustrating, and I'm afraid the next question I've got to ask is, what's the next record you're going to choose?
The next record? Chevalier singing the Song of the Flea. You ask me why? Well, because I met Chevalier in one of his recitals at Dublin. And he took a great fancy to me and called me the greatest artist, etc., etc. And when he found I was going to be in Belfast the following week, and he was, he invited me to meet him at supper after the show. So at Belfast, after the show, I went to his hotel, and his season had ended. His manager was nearly mad with his worries of Chevalier during a tour showing so much temperamental. But Chevalier now is finished. He came into the room, he threw off his dress coat, tore off his collar and tie. He says, I am finished now. I am a man. And we had a wonderful evening, wonderful night.
Well, to remind you of it, on your island, here's the Song of the Flea. As well as the straight theatre, a great part of your career has been spent in the music hall, hasn't it? Yeah. How did all that start?
Oh, well, when I was left stranded, something had got to be done. And so I thought, well, now, if I could get an audition to be a mimic. So I got an audition at the London Shoreditch. I gave some imitations there, and they were a success. So big a success, I was engaged to open properly on the Monday. On the Wednesday night, I was hustled away from the London Shoreditch to the Tivoli and found there that Dan Leno was the greatest comedian of his day. was indisposed and they wanted a deputy, and I was put on as the deputy.
After only 3 days in the music hall.
3 days in the music hall, and of course, well, I was lucky enough to make a very big success, and I stayed at the Trilby then for 12 weeks.
Yes. What, as a mimic, who you were imitating? Comedians or actors?
Oh, I did all the big comedians, and then I did actors as well.
When did you start with your famous Dickens characterizations?
Well, when I was well established in variety, I asked to be able to do Dickens characters, and in the end they said yes, all right. Well, I made such a success with Dickens characters that I've been called the Dickens man and played Dickens characters all over the world.
Yeah. When did you start making films?
Oh, I started making films in the very ancient days when they made silent films in 2 or 3 weeks, and we did it with old canvas scenery.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's all wonderful built stuff.
And since those days you've made many pictures.
Yes, memories of some very happy times with John Baxter as my producer. We were playing The Common Touch, which was a very popular picture. I played an old toy seller, and Mark Hamburg played an itinerant musician. He was in ragged clothes, and on the piano he played my next record, which is Tchaikovsky's Pianoforte Concerto No. 1. This is played by Solomon.
Oh, let's hear it. Williams, how do you enjoy working in television?
Oh, well, I've got used to television now. I mean, they laugh because they all say I'm so natural.
You were a pioneer in television, too, weren't you?
Well, I was such a pioneer in television that it was Baird who came to me and asked me if I would recite a verse of the Green Eye of the God. And they put me in a sort of telephone box. And there I stood and recited until I nearly went mad, seeing red and black lines in front of me. But Baird came round excited and said it was a success. We saw you in the next room.
Oh, let's have another record. What's number 5?
I've been thinking that there would come a time when I'd like a peaceful half an hour. Some of the people who I listen to on this desert island, they always have some damn noisy thing rattling away. But if it's called Beethoven or Rachmaninoff, marvelous. It's music. So I thought I'd like a rest for a few minutes, and so I've chosen the Cavaliere Rusticana.
The intermezzo?
The intermezzo, yes. I should be nice and peaceful for a little while then. I could hear if there was a monkey growling behind me.
intermezzo from Cavaliere Rusticana. What's your next choice?
Well, the next choice is a bit of Pomp and Circumstance by Elgar. I've forgotten the year when there was the big exhibition at Wembley.
23, wasn't it? Or 24?
Well, it must have been somewhere about that time. Anyway, I know I was lucky enough to get a seat among about 20,000 people. King George V and Queen Mary drove round the arena, took their seats, and after a lot of pomp and ceremony, the orchestras were all ready, and I had the pleasure of seeing old Elgar, very round-shouldered, mount the rostrum, and he conducted Pomp and Circumstance. And I just thought, well, that's a memory.
Here it is. Elgar's fourth Pomp and Circumstance march. Now, Mr. Williams, we're dumping you on this island. How do you think you'd face your exile? Would the solitude worry you?
No. Wouldn't matter to you or anybody else if it did, would it?
Certainly not. No, we'll see you're rescued in pretty good time. Don't worry.
Oh, rescued?
Certainly.
Oh, it says for life.
Oh,
I was imagining they're finding the poor old bones and saying, who was this guy?
Don't worry, we will see that you're rescued somehow.
Oh,
but during this short time that you're on this island, could you look after yourself? Do you like fishing, for instance?
No, what's the good of saying I do. But I'd have to do something.
Yes. Well, say you've caught a fish. Can
I
you
even
cook?
caught a bunch of tiddlers and called them sprats.
Can you cook?
No, I boil an egg and cook a rasher of bacon.
Well, that's all right. That's good enough. You'll do very nicely on this island.
Where's the bacon coming from?
I hadn't thought, but I'm sure it'll be there somehow.
Oh, you are. You know more about it before I go, don't you?
You've never even contemplated for a minute retiring, have you?
Not really retiring. I think a man's a fool if his mind's active. And I'm told that my mind is pretty active for my age. Every day I get some new idea.
Well, that's what keeps you so young.
Very likely.
Well, let's have your seventh record. What's that?
My seventh, Handel's Largo.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Because I was always fascinated with it as a youngster. I'm having Gladys Ripley singing it, and I'm sure that'll always be fascinating. It'll always be restful, and as I say again, melody, beautiful melody. No skiffle.
Now, what's your last one, Mr. Williams, the last of your 8?
The last one is going to be the only big noisy one that I've got, and that's the Ride of the Valkyries. I've listened to so many of them having those noises all the way through, and I thought to myself, well, I don't know. Poor old bloke sitting alone on a desert island. Sometimes I shall want to feel that there is some life around me, so let's have the Ride of the Valkyries to stir things up a bit.
One more question, Mr. Williams. As well as your 8 records, you can take to the island a luxury. What have you chosen?
Well, I don't know if they'll allow me to have reams and reams of paper with enough pencils to be able to write diaries or thoughts. When they find it and they say, if I don't get rescued at all, mind you, they'll find the old man's bones in these manuscripts and they say, more Dead Sea fruit.
Don't worry, we're going to see that you're rescued. You shall have your paper and as many pencils as we can manage. And thank you, Bransby Williams, for letting us hear your choice of Desert Island Discs, and we look forward to you entertaining us for many years to come.
Thank you for asking me, and more so, for putting up with me. All I hope is that I don't offend anybody, and please others as I've tried to please myself. So, bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you when I'm 90.
The guest in today's recorded program was Bransby Williams and the interviewer Roy Plumley.
You've been listening to a podcast from the Desert Island Discs archive. For more podcasts, please visit bbc.co.uk/Radio4.